I'm talking with Marian Bollinger here in her apartment at the Timbercrest Senior Living Community near North Manchester. And I'm John Pontius for the Oral History Project of Whitley County. Marian has been the longtime library director for the South Whitley Library, and she is affectionately and with great respect known as Marian the Librarian. And she graciously loaned me her wonderful autobiography so I can prepare for this interview. Thank you for having us here, Marian.
You're welcome.
So where were you born and grew up?
I was born in South Whitley, in the same house that I lived in most of my life.
Okay.
Out there just across the bridge.
Okay, and is it the White House there by the large neon manufacturing company?
It's close to that. It's
Close to
about
that.
a block away.
Okay. Did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
Where was the high school at that time?
Oh, I think, let me see, it was on, what street was that? I'm not sure what the name of the street was. We didn't go so much by the name of the streets, you know.
Is it still there?
Yeah,
The building is still there?
yes.
Okay. How many were in your class when you graduated?
17.
Okay. What did you do right out of high school then?
I walked down to the library one evening, Saturday evening, and my boyfriend was at Culver Military Academy on a scholarship. And so I was kind of a loner. And I walked into the library, and Mrs. Metzger, the librarian, said, "Marian, I'd like to talk to you." Okay. What do you want to say? The library board would like to have you turn in your application for assistant librarian. Well, I was just fresh out of school and didn't know very much at all about procedures and so forth. Said, you write a letter, you send it to the board, and we will see what happens. And I did that.
What did you do as assistant librarian?
Everything. Everything but the bookwork.
Okay. Where was the library at that time?
At that time it was on Front Street, facing Front Street, across from the, I guess it was the, I can't think what it was. It was some kind of a public building.
Okay. And so how long were you working as assistant library there?
Oh, until 1977, 70, I think, something like that. Anyway, she decided that she wanted to retire, and I would have to go to Indianapolis and take the test. And if I passed it, why, I could be the librarian and she would be the assistant. We just traded places.
Were you ever on the library board?
Was I?
Yes.
No.
Okay. And
except just as an official librarian.
okay. How long then were you the head librarian?
Until 1990.
Since 1990. Okay.
Until 1990.
Oh, until 1990. What were the changes in the library? At first, you just people just checked out books, and that was it. And now the services are a lot more complete. Is that-
Yes, I think sometimes that it's a good thing I'm out of it, because I don't have to do all that work. We had book reports and all that sort of thing, and we went to a lot of meetings and gave speeches and whatever there was to do, and filled our bill as a librarian.
What were some of the major challenges as the head librarian early on? Was money ever a problem?
That was always a problem.
Okay.
There was never enough. I mean, we had to always scrimp and save and make do with what we had. And then we had a lot of assistance in help, you know, from the friends. Edna Michael was such a good storyteller, and
Yes,
we
they were
used her every chance we had.
volunteers.
Mhm.
What kind of books did people check out the most back when you first got started? What did they like to read?
Probably fiction,
Okay.
adult fiction.
And
There were some though that had very good rapport, I guess you'd say, with the people of the community. And if ever there was a talk to give or anything like that, well, they would be there to give it.
did people buy books very much back
They
then?
didn't have any money.
And there probably were few places to even buy books either.
Not to speak of.
In the South Whitley area.
No, there wasn't. Sometimes at Christmas time you got a book. If you were a
Okay.
child.
And I assume you had magazines in the library at first?
We had a lot of magazines.
And newspapers?
Uh,
Newspapers?
Yes,
In the library?
newspapers, and we had the Chicago Tribune. And there was one lady in particular, Anna Craig, who came in every day to read the Chicago Tribune.
Okay. And so, were there any interesting or unusual happenings in your library while you were there? Any?
No, we tried to make it as comfortable and as pleasant as we could. We even had coffee, which was unusual.
Okay.
They could make their own coffee with what equipment we had there, and it worked out very well.
I suppose your experience in business helped you out, well, as director.
My what?
Your experience with business.
Oh, I suppose, except the two kind of, you know, went together.
Yes.
I was doing one at the same time I was doing the other. And after my husband died, why, I had quite a bit of his type of work to do, which I enjoyed very much.
At times you were working both for your husband's business and at the library at the same time.
Yeah, it was a duplicate thing. Long, long hours. I would go to Fort Wayne in the morning and be there at 7 to pick up the mail at the post office and work until 1:15, and then I would get in my car and fly back to South Whitley and open the library at 2 o'clock. And that was interesting. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the ride, I guess.
Yeah. When was there a library, the first library in South Whitley?
1913.
And how did that happen to get started?
Mrs. Mayer, Mrs. Moses Mayer, there were two Mayer brothers, and Mrs. Moses was Eugenia. And one time she said to somebody, what this town needs is a library, and I'm going to see that they get one. And so she invited a number of friends to her house. I don't know whether it was for a dinner or what, but anyway, it was quite a business meeting, and they decided to start a library, and that was in 1913. and they asked for anybody that had any books that they could spare to just bring them to the library, and we'd see what we had.
So where was it?
It was, let's see, just about the same place that it was there for a long time. But, I mean, on that same street.
What was it? What was the building like? Was it a
Well, we
house?
first started upstairs in the building above what is now the cafe.
Okay, it was right there downtown.
Yes.
Okay.
And after a while, boy, they decided to move it, and I guess they moved it downtown to, farther down to the Baumgartner building, which was run by Mrs. Rowe. And I guess she was a widow lady, and I guess she was there for quite a while on the banks of the river.
Okay. Now, you actually grew up on the near the banks of the river,
Oh yeah,
didn't you?
sure.
I suppose the river was a big part of South Whitley over the years. Like, did people use it to fish or ride boats on it?
Mhm. Yeah. And then there was a cider mill along the river, just in front of our house where we lived out across the bridge. You just go down a long lane, and there was the red cider mill. And in the fall, a lot of people, farmers, would bring their apples in a wagon, and they have to park clear up to the corner, the Cuppy Corner, if you know where that is. And the horses would stand there and stamp their feet, and we had to be very careful as children that we didn't get hit by a horse. And then my mother, I guess, was conscious of history. Anyway, she said, we'll walk down to the cider mill someday, which we did, maybe more than once. And Mr. Simon Bollinger was the owner of it, and he would dip a tin cup into the cider, and we'd drink out of it. I can't say that was very, well, it wasn't the best thing to do.
What churches were around back when you were
There were
growing
5
up?
churches, I think. Just exactly what time they were. There was the United Brethren, and the Baptist, and the Church of God, a little bit later, and the Methodist, and the Church of the Brethren at one time. So there were 5.
And are they still there?
No.
Are some of them still there?
Well, I tell you, it happened like this. The Church of the United Brethren was there for quite a long time, and then there came a time when they decided to join with the I don't know whether it was Episcopalians, or I don't think that was the name of it, but Congregational maybe. Anyway, there were 2 churches that kind of joined together, and so we were that for a long time. And then there came a time when Mr. Reverend Glebe was the minister of the Methodist Church. And he was a young man, very capable and all of that, but he didn't have good health. And they just had to do something about that. And the thought was that there was going to be a united church, but just how it was going to materialize, nobody knew. But he got so bad that our church, the United Brethren, just loaded up on a Sunday morning after our church service was over and went over to the Methodist church and walked in, choir and all, and performed another church service, which was very much appreciated.
Now, did you play the organ for your church?
Oh, I did. I don't know just what the years would have been. My mother said to me one day, "Marian, would you like to take piano lessons?" And I said, "Well, no, I can't take piano lessons because we don't have any money." And she said, "Well, we'll see," or something like that. And on Monday morning, she handed me a $1 bill and she said, "You go up through town." You know, we didn't run around like the kids do now. Go up through town and go over to the Methodist church corner, and then turn and go down to the corner house, the house on the corner, and that's where Miss Anna lives, Anna Craig. And you go to her and she will give you a piano lesson. And I said, "But we don't have any piano." She said, "Well, the old organ will have to do for now." So we had one of these old pump organs, you know. And I walked over there and she gave me a lesson, and she was very, very strict. If you didn't do just right, she'd pat your hand, and we were a little scared of her, I guess. But I took 25 lessons of her, and then that's all I really had. But my dad, oh, he loved music, and he worked at the Gripnut Company, and as a tool and die man. And at night, when supper was over, well, he'd bring his rocking chair in and sit by my top end of the piano and read his paper, but I knew he was listening to every note I played. And when I was all through, and my mother was through washing the dishes, my brother was in from play. He was 2 years younger than I was. And then my dad would say, "Well, can we sing now?" And of course we could. We had one book, one hymn book, and one secular book, I believe. And so we grouped around the piano, just the 4 of us, and we'd sing and sing and sing. Sometimes we'd almost sing the whole book through. And the nice thing that I remember about it was that we had a hard coal burner, if you know what that was, with the isinglass windows.
Okay.
And it made such a nice warm glow in the house. And it was very pleasant. So we sang and sang and sang. And one song that he liked in particular was "O Italia Beloved." And we sang that almost every night.
You would sing mostly hymns?
Yes.
Okay.
And then that one secular book I said that we had, well, there was the Volga Boat song in that one. And so we sang that about every time. Well, then the story ends much later, when I was in Finland. And I was on an airplane going into Russia. And the pilot came through and he said, "I just want to tell you that if any of you are interested, we are now crossing the Volga River." I almost fell out of the airplane because it was so reminiscent of my dad, and he was so wonderful. And the story about him was that he had to give up his job at the South Whitley Gripnut because of the Depression.
Is the factory is no longer there then? No.
Well, I
Is
guess,
that correct?
I'm not sure about whether it's there now or not, but it was dying down,
Okay.
and the Depression was just on full blast. But he was told that if he wanted to, he could go to Chicago and work in the Chicago plant and come back and forth on the train. Well, that wasn't a very happy situation, because we depended on my dad to be the bone of the family. Anyway, that was all we could do. So about once every 3 months or so, he could save up enough money to come home by train on Saturday and stay till Sunday afternoon, when he had to board a train again and go back. We sure hated to see him go, but it was all we could do. Well, there came a time when the Gripnut Company said, you must have a physical. Everybody in the plant must have a physical. And so he, along with all the rest of them, went to the doctor and had a physical. And they told him that he had to have an operation for appendicitis, because he had chronic appendicitis. Well, what was there to do? Give up a job? The only job that was available anywhere, or else.
This was during the Depression era?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
1934, something like that. Anyway, my mother then, on the day after Christmas, we spent Christmas together in South Whitley, and then she went with him back to Chicago by train, and was to be with him while he had the operation. Well, he had the operation all right, and it was successful as far as that goes. But one day, shortly after that, like maybe 2 days, the nurse went by his doorway in the hospital, and she looked again and again and again, and, well, there's something the matter with Mr. Enos. And she walked in and he was dead. He'd had a blood clot on the lung, and that was the end of him. So we received a telephone call about 11 o'clock at night that we should come and pick her up.
Okay.
And going to Chicago is just like going to a foreign land to us. But we managed to, we had a new Plymouth car. And my husband and my brother, I guess, went to Chicago, and we found her, found her, and just felt that it was kind of a godsend that we were directed there, because it seemed like it was so far away. And coming home, we came through a little town called Homestead, and lo and behold, we got arrested for speeding. And
When you were first married, where did you live?
oh, we all lived together in the same house.
In the same house?
Yeah.
And with your...
Mother.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And did you buy any furniture for the rooms where you lived?
You must have read something about that.
Yes.
We just used the furniture that my mother had, of course.
Okay.
And yet, oh, we were so excited when we found that we had a little money that we could put down on a chair at the furniture store. I think it was the Miller Furniture Store. And so we went up one Saturday night and chose a very nice upholstered chair. Upholstered in the sense of not upholstery as such, but anyway, we made a deal that we would buy that chair $5 down and $1 a month. So we got it paid for $13.
Okay.
We were so proud of that chair.
You spent some time when you were growing up with your grandparents too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we went, they lived just 5 miles south of town. You just go straight on out the road that we were on, and you go out to Lee's Corner, which was 5 miles south on the road to Huntington. And when we got to Lee's Corner, then we were to make a left turn and go a half a mile or maybe less than that. And then another half mile, and there was their house. It's up there in that picture on the wall.
I noticed one time in your autobiography you said you took a jitney bus. What is a jitney bus?
It was just a regular bus.
Okay.
And the time came when my mother, who never went anywhere except to church and to meetings locally, well, anyway, she had been delegated to go to a conference, I guess, for the missionary ladies. And that was an unheard of thing for her to go, to leave us children and to go away. But it seemed to be the thing to do, and we were to stay with Grandma and Grandpa, 5 miles south of town.
And what were their names?
Faudrey.
Okay.
While she was gone for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. She was to come home on Saturday. Well, the thing of it was that it was on Thursday evening when she was to leave, and we were to go to Grandma's at that time, and we were to ride the bus. And so when the jitney bus came over the bridge, why, we had to wave it down, and of course he stopped and we got on, and it was a strange world to us. We had never been on a bus, and we didn't know really how to act, but we sat down like good little children and rode the 5 miles to south to her house, to her corner.
What did it cost?
A penny.
A penny?
A penny
A mile?
a mile.
Okay.
Anyway, as we neared the Lee's Corner, which was also the corner where you turned right to go to the Centenary Church, you turned left to go to Grandma's, but you turned right to go to the Centenary Church. It looked real rainy, and by the time we got off the bus, it was raining. Well, what are we to do? May Cooper was one of the, well, she lived in that house on the corner, and she came out to get us. I guess by telephone we were told that we were supposed to go with her. And so we went in the house with her, kind of a big old farmhouse. But you know, I was very unhappy, and I was already very lonesome and very homesick, and I hadn't even got there yet.
Okay.
Well, after a while she said, I think we'll go down in the basement and we'll have some ice cream. So she had made a big container of ice cream.
Homemade ice cream.
Huh?
Homemade
ice cream. And of course we had a little dish of it, but I was not hungry for ice cream or anything else. I just wanted to go home and be with Mom again.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, my uncle, Edison, came in his car and picked us up and took us around the corner and around another corner into the barnyard of this house up here that you see on the picture. And I was very unhappy, especially after we walked into the kitchen and he lighted a lamp, an old coal lamp, I guess it was, and made one dim little light there. And we, 2 kids, were supposed to sit there in the kitchen while he and my grandparents finished the chores and did the milking and turned the separator and all that, which wasn't our idea of fun.
You mentioned the cave.
The cave.
What was that?
When my folks brought in the milk from the barn, they had to walk through the kitchen.
Mhm.
And it was a long kitchen. And they got to the end of the kitchen, there were 2 steps down into the separator room, and that's where they poured the milk into the big container and turned the crank, and cream would come out one side and milk come out the other side. And here we were, these 2 little kids sitting on the wood box, just bored silly. Well, when my grandmother came in then, there was supper to be had, and she finished up the meal on the old cook stove. And I was not hungry. I was just lonesome already.
Now, back in South Whitley, let's talk about some of the places that are no longer there. You mentioned Bayman's Food Bank.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
Well, you know where the stoplight is now, Liddy's stoplight. Well, it was just right to the west of that stoplight. And it was a big square building, blocks, I believe. And that's where they took animals to be butchered, and the Baymans took care of the meat, packing it and all that, and putting it in a cold place until the people needed it.
Is any relation to the current county councilman, Jim Bayman?
Oh, yes, I think so.
Okay.
Just what, I don't know.
Now, you mentioned the Decoration Day was a big thing back then. What did people do on Decoration Day?
We marched in a parade, and there was band music and drums and all of that, and they started, I think, at the schoolhouse and came down the side street and hit the main street with a bang and came right straight on down south. It would be west, down west to where the bridge was. And there they, I don't know just what all happened, but there was a program of some kind.
Like speeches?
And yeah, there were speeches, and then there was a trumpet, and the trumpet played taps, and it was very, very sacred. It very thought that it had to do with the war and soldier boys and all of that.
Did you go to the cemetery then for?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
leave flowers?
Sometimes we did. Yeah, we always left flowers on our special graves.
Now you mentioned Stellar's Candy Shop.
It was on the main street,
Mm-hmm.
just about a half a block from where the stoplight is on the south, I'm turned around uptown. That's awful to be turned around uptown, but I was. And it was on it was the east side of the street, I guess, then. And Mr. Stellar, little old man, dirty hands, but he kept his fingers going like this on top of the counter, and just was never impatient in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
He was just always taking time for all of us, and we had a penny to spend, and it was real, real important that we get what we wanted. And so I like the long licorice whips.
Mm-hmm.
Licorice whips. And when I finally decided that that's what I wanted, he very graciously said, "Thank you," and I went out the door, and it was over.
Did he sell anything besides candy?
Oh, he sold popcorn,
Okay.
and especially in the on band concert night.
In the summer?
and in summer that was on Wednesday night, and he had an old-fashioned popcorn machine, and he would move that out to the curb, and oh boy, that smell would just go up and down the whole street, and it smelled so good. And for a nickel, we could have a big sack of popcorn. And so we walked up and down the 2 blocks and ate our popcorn and just had a wonderful time. And at the end of that time, those of us who had an extra little bit of money, like 10 cents, went to Norris's drugstore on the corner, which was newly built by that time. And the chairs, you know, were the wire variety. The back of them were, I don't know what you call them, but anyway, it was a high point in the evening to go and order phosphate.
Where was the band concert?
On the corner there where the restaurant is now, the cafe.
Okay. And were there other fairs or festivals in South Whitley?
Oh yes, every summer there was a festival, and they had a Ferris wheel and a merry-go-round. And my dad was really rather lenient, I think, with us, considering the times that we were in. Because I remember going up on the Ferris wheel and landing up on top, and was about scared silly, but we got down safely.
What other things did the kids do for fun back then? You played games, I suppose?
Yeah, they had games, and they didn't run around like they do now.
What were some of the games you played back then?
Every night after supper, we had a big yard out here at this White House. We had a big yard, and all the neighborhood kids would come and would gather in our yard, and we'd play, we played Run Sheepy Run.
What was that like?
Oh, it was just a game that had rules, and that you know, you had to stay within certain limits. And then there was Too Deep.
What was that like?
That was another one of those that there were 2 people standing together, you see, all the way around the circle, and then the person who was in charge would run and get in front of the first one, and the one behind then had to go on around and stand behind somebody else. It was complicated, but we understood it. And I don't know, Too Deep, and
Was there one called Red Rover?
yes, there was, but I don't remember playing that too much.
Okay. Did you read a lot at home either during when you were in school or when you were working at the library? Did you
I read every minute that I could.
What kind of things did you read?
I read Grace Livingston Hill, lots books of fiction, sweet little love stories, and I read just about everything there was in the library as far as fiction is concerned.
Did you have a favorite author any of those times? I suppose it depended on your age.
Yeah, it did. I had a lot of authors.
Were there other people you remember in South Whitley who were kind of reading fanatics?
Reading fanatics?
Yeah, people that like to read.
Oh yeah, there were always those that did and those that didn't.
And who were they mostly?
Well, Edna Michael, like I said, was an artist. She was a mother of 5 children, but she was certainly an artist too. And she could paint and put clouds in the sky that would just seem so real. And I don't know, she could tell stories till it would just hold the children's attention till we had story hours on Saturday afternoon, and the children would come crowding into the library, and at that point we had the story hour downstairs and down in the basement, and she'd sit there in her rocking chair and rock back and forth and tell the stories, and the children would just eat up every word.
Now, you wrote an article about the library news for the South Whitley Tribune.
Yeah, I started in 1959 to write a weekly article for the Tribune, just to keep it in mind so that people didn't forget that we were there. And that was quite successful, I guess, because it went on and on and on until I was ready to retire. I have them all.
What was the best part of being library director?
I just don't know. I just liked it all. It was just the sort of the center of town. There were one or two things that happened that were not too happy about. When the building got on fire one Sunday, and the library's on fire. And so we hurried down there just as fast as we could go, and it was just devastating to see the library on fire, but it didn't burn very much. And the upshot of it all was that Mrs. Metzger and I had to go in there and clean everything up and clean all the books and, I don't know, just put the thing back in place again.
Well, about when was this? About how long ago was this? Are you talking about 30 or 40 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to talk about, the library or your life with your husband? You helped him out quite a bit in his business, didn't you?
We, like I said, we were destitute really, almost for food and all that. And there was a time when I got $20 a month for working 5 days a week and sometimes on Saturday. And come to find out that Mrs. Metzger came to me one day and she said, we're so short of money that we can't pay you. And we'll have to cut your salary from $20 to $16. And so for a long time I would work for $16 a month. But it was the one thing that kept our household together. My mother, I would give her my money and she would phone the farmer's elevator and hesitate. Oh, how she hated to do that. Could you bring just a couple, a little bit of, I don't know how much, not a cord, but some small amount of coal, just to keep us going for a little while because we don't have any more money. And so they would come and they would back into our driveway and she'd open the cellar window and crash, crash, crash went the coal that was to keep us warm. And we didn't have a furnace then. We just had a coal stove.
You lived in the same house on Columbia Street a long time, didn't you?
Yeah, I go by it today even, and
still there.
Yeah, it's still there, and I think of all the times it so happened that my grandfather on the Enos side, let's see, I guess he died, and my dad somehow got the property next door, just over the line, over the, well, it was the alley, I guess you'd call it. There was our house here, and then the alley, and then this bare lot. And so he decided that he was going to put a house on that. And just how you do that without any money, I don't know. But anyway, he called my Uncle Edison again. And he said, could you come in with your horses and bring your plow or your ditcher or whatever you call it, and dig a hole where I want this house to sit. And so Uncle Edison did that. And I can remember yet when the team would start, yay, you know, up a big spoonful of dirt would come, big plowful, and pretty soon it was all cleared out, and then he cemented it. And that was a big deal. And after so long a time, why, after my grandfather had died, well, he decided that he was going to bring the house that they had lived in out in the country. Now this is the other grandfather. There were two sets of grandfathers. Anyway, he's going to move that house in as bad a shape as it was. He's going to move it those 5 miles into South Whitley. And how was he to do it? Well, he was going to attach telephone poles to the front and the back and attach horses, and then after so long a time the horses would pull the building so many feet, then they'd have to stop and switch around again, and well, you know how it is. I can't describe it really.
Okay.
But the horses would pull the house another so many feet until finally they came the 5 miles uphill and down dale into Cuppy Corner. Well, they got to Cuppy Corner, and then they had to go down that hill and move that house over into the alley, and then over into above that hole where they had cemented a basement. And that was all a big deal.
I wanted to ask you, during the Depression and also during the World War, the Second World War, did the library have to change anything during those times? Was it very different?
Not a whole lot. We just kept going just as we were.
Okay.
We had such things as guppies. You know what a guppy is?
Yes.
We had guppies to the fish tank about that big, and it was entertaining as could be to the children. And then they had the Girl Scout organization put in a fountain with running water
In the library.
in the library. And everybody that I have talked to in recent years has mentioned, oh, and that fountain, that was the greatest.
Now, there was another collection in the library. Let's see, was it rocks, or what was that all about? There in the back of the library.
Mr. Theodore Schultz
Okay.
had quite a collection of rocks, and they were very good rocks. I mean, he had a wonderful collection. And he also had a nice long cupboard, like with glass, and those I can't really explain it because it was just even lighted. And everybody came for miles around to see those rocks.
Now, you have a genealogical department in the basement now? A history or genealogical area?
Oh yeah, we always had,
You've had that for a long time?
yeah.
Okay.
We saved everything there was to save. And we had story hours, of course, and the children would come on Saturday afternoon and troop down to the basement and have their story hour and spend a half a day down there. Then with Edna Michael as the leader, and up they would come, and then they would settle themselves around the small table that was near the door in the library and pick out the choice of books that they wanted to take home with them.
And recently, you've had some remodeling or additions to the library?
There was a time, I don't know when it was, but I heard about sort of a federal grant that was going to be given, and so I applied for it. And it was to be $500, I don't know, remember anymore. But anyway, as long as I was there, it didn't materialize. But as soon as I left, maybe I didn't leave soon enough, but anyway, the new librarian, Darcy, I guess applied for the same grant, and she got it.
Okay.
$500,000. And then they remodeled the inside of the library, and it was just beautiful.
You're very happy with it?
Yes.
Well, what was the best part of living in South Whitley, as opposed to maybe some other bigger town?
Well, we just liked it. That's the way it was. And there was always something going on that was entertaining. There was always seemingly a band concert or, there were lots of little things I could think of. Take for instance my husband, who he later became my husband. He was only 9 years old, I believe he said, when his father owned the Ditzler Feed Company. I don't know, they sold chickens and...
In the South Whitley area?
Yeah, right there on the corner,
Okay.
just right at the bridge. I guess there's some sort of I don't know what's there now, I guess the tavern or something. But anyway, he was 9 years old, and his grandfather would help him load the chickens on a truck, a little truck, and sent him on the way to Huntington to deliver that at 9 years old. There's a lot more about that.
Well, Marian, thank you very much for sharing your life experiences and your knowledge of the South Whitley area for all the generations to come.
Well, you're just very welcome. I wish I had more time because I'm sure it would take forever.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.